Hello. Today I'm going to talk about one of your biggest assets that's available to you that is completely in your control, and no matter what your circumstances and what you're dealing with externally, this is the one thing that no one can impact on by you. It's resilience, your inner resilience. If you can build your inner resilience, a bit like muscles, very similar to muscles, and extend it and expand it, it makes you better able, better equipped to deal with anything that comes your way, no matter what the circumstances. Now, at the time of recording this, we are in the middle of the coronavirus, and a lot of things feel out of our control. So it's even more essential at the moment that we look after our mental health, our mental fitness, and our inner resilience so that we can handle the situation that we're handling right now. If we're not in lockdown when you watch this, it's still relevant because we get issues come in and out of our life all the time. The greater our resilience, the greater our ability to handle those things. So it's certainly worth covering. But what is resilience? Let's look at that first. The definitions of resilience really, there's numerous definitions of resilience, but for me, what I'm referring to is the willingness never to give up, the willingness to get through, or the ability to be able to bounce back. So not just cultivating our inner strengths, it's also the ability to bounce back from hardiness, difficulties, adversity with inner strength. It's the capacity to rebound from those tough times, not just get through, but thrive. That's my aim here, is to help you get through tough times and come out stronger. So dig deep in your inner strengths that are already there, or start to increase and improve them as in a similar way as you would in a gym, building up your muscle tone by repeat, so that you have a bank of inner resilience ready to draw on whenever you need it. So really what we're aiming for here is the ability to bend but not break. Often when I'm running these workshops, I hand out the little wooden kebab sticks and also rubber bands, and I get all of the delegates to hold the kebab sticks and put them under intense pressure each end. So hold them at each end, and in fact I've got one. I've forgotten I had this. This is rigid. Okay, this material is rigid. If we put it under intense pressure, it breaks. Now, what we're looking at here with resilience is not being rigid. It's being flexible. Have I got a rubber band? I don't think I have. But if you imagine a rubber band, you pull it, you hold it back in a similar way to the arrow here. You pull back and put under intense pressure the pull on the arrow or on the rubber band. It's flexible, you pull it back, which is symbolic of life really. Often we're held back at times. It feels a bit out of our control. We're under pressure, we're under stress. But when we release that pressure of the rubber band or the arrow or the problem that we're facing, when that pressure is released, we spring forward, not just to where we were before we were held back, but much further forward. So this is what we're aiming for here, to be able to cope with adversity, struggles, obstacles, and challenges, but come out much stronger and much further forward than we were before. So in a way, it's seeing adversity and difficulties and challenges as great things. You can see them as a gift, because not only do you find out a lot about yourself, it has the ability, and you have the opportunity now that you're under pressure, let's say with the coronavirus, a lot of things feel out of our control. We're anxious, we're worried, we feel trapped maybe. Some of us are coping better than others, but let's say we're out of the coronavirus and you're dealing with work issues or family issues or relationship issues or whatever. You feel under pressure, but it is the opportunity to feel pulled back, held back, but you can strive, thrive, bounce back higher and further. And if you look at the arrow there, aiming for bullseye, it's much more likely to hit bullseye than if he wasn't held back. So we need to embrace these things so that we can spring forward and come out stronger. Don't resist them, because what we resist persists. If we see them as opportunity and embrace them, we'll come out much, much stronger. So before I put together various resilience workshops that I run for teams, I did lots of research, and there is a common thread between that runs through, or characteristics that run through very resilient people. And what are those characteristics? Well, some of the common characteristics that they're seeing or they display compared to not so resilient people. First of all, they have an inner optimism in life. They're generally optimistic people. What, you know, I researched lots of people as survivors of real tragedies, actually, being held hostage, being beaten and tortured, perhaps Auschwitz survivors. I've looked at all of those, and they found that one of the common themes, characteristics that these people have, is an optimism and an ability to find the positive in most aspects. And I've talked about this on my podcast. If we can see the positives in what is going on for us, even if there's just one positive, and even if it's just small, focus on that instead of focusing on what feels out of your control, instead of feeling that you want to focus on the negative. Don't do that. Resist that. So, for example, the coronavirus, I've talked about this in previous episodes and on the podcast. Already, we're in the UK just two weeks in at the moment, at the time of recording this, but already I feel optimistic that when this is behind us, there will be some real good positives. I'm not demeaning the scariness of it and the seriousness of it at all, but there will be some positives from it. For example, we're much more united as not only a country, but also as a planet. We're all pulling together. We're all the scientific communities, all the government communities, all humankind are pulling together, whether it's just with our neighbours or with the NHS and applauding them, or looking after, keeping in touch with friends and family and keeping them sane, doing shopping for the elderly up the road. You know, we're all pulling together. The fact that there's minimal traffic at the moment, minimal travel, minimal flights, the planet will benefit from the positive impact this is having on climate change. If most countries are in lockdown and there's minimal traffic and travel for the next 2-3 months, that will have been 3 months that most of the countries have reduced their travel and their carbon footprint. That's got to have a good impact. I think our appreciation and our funding of the NHS will be another positive, and I suspect that will be in many countries. They will realise just how important it is to fund the healthcare systems in their countries and to support them properly and equip them properly, and to encourage future doctors and nurses to train, etc., as a profession. So we've always got that medical backup that we need. So already there's some positives here. What will you find in all of this, in your situation, and the reason you're watching this film? What is the positive for you at the moment that you can imagine at the outcome of this difficult challenge that you're facing? If you focus on that, that helps your resilience. Secondly, they find in very resilient people that they know the value of supporting each other. They know that no man is an island. They know that they need to turn to each other wherever they are, whether they're in a prison or in Auschwitz, they pull together. But just us generally in our lives now, we can pull together. Is it your neighbours? Is it people in your household? Is it people via FaceTime, on social media? Can it be that you download House Party app and contact each other and have a quiz, or a Friday night where you all have a beer or something virtually via House Party? Can you ring an elderly aunt, a cousin, see if they're all right, a grandparent? Can you start posting on social media and be cheerful and make sure everybody's staying okay? Those that are having a bad day, you cheer them up. When you're having a bad day, they cheer you up. Telling people how you feel, admitting you're having a difficult time. So if you're going through a challenge at the moment and you're trying to build your resilience, then see the value of support. Turn to other people. Tell them how you're feeling. Equally, be that person that they can turn to in return. They have proven scientifically that if you can name more than more than 3 people that you could turn to at any time through any difficulty and know they would be there for you, whether it's in the middle of the night, whether it's a huge financial issue that you've got, a relationship issue, all sorts of problems. If you can name more than 3 people that you can turn to or that would turn to you, it has been found that you are likely to live 8 years longer than those people who cannot name more than 3 people. They can only name 3 or less. So this helps your longevity. So it's definitely worth, if you don't have more than 3 people that you could name now, that you could turn to, or who would turn to you, then this is something worth focusing on right now. Building those social networks, building those solid relationships. So look for support and look for opportunities to provide support. It boosts how you feel when you're being kind and supportive to other people in return. Another characteristic is perspective. They keep it in perspective. So whatever you're facing at the moment, put it in perspective. What I say to clients when I'm working one-to-one with people is, how large is this issue that you're facing? Fast forward, imagine, close your eyes, imagine now, fast forward to 3 months' time, or say 6 months' time. Just fast forward 6 months' time. What month would that be? What season would it be? What age would you be, etc., etc. And then think about, will this challenge still be relevant then? Will this challenge feel as large and as important then? Will this challenge even be part of your mindset then? Will it be relevant? Or will it in fact be a distant memory? Or will it in fact be barely a memory at all? What I'm saying here is get perspective. If it's something that in 6 months' time you'll barely remember or barely think about, then get some perspective. If you feel it is still going to be very, very relevant in 6 months, but less so or more so, then you've got perspective again. But get some perspective, put it in the right proportion so that you can appropriately respond to it with the right relevancy. If you're completely blowing this out of perspective and you realize that in 6 months it barely feels significant, then that helps. That takes away that impact. So just do a little mind check, a mental check. How important is this? How big is this? And am I responding and worrying as appropriately as or inappropriately, as relevantly as I should be, or not? So let's look at the next one. A sense of humor. Common characteristics of very resilient people is they maintain a sense of humor. They're able to not only laugh at things, they're able to laugh at themselves and laugh at life's challenges. So are you maintaining a sense of humor at the moment? Could you build up a sense of humor? Could you start to laugh at it a little bit? Or if you can't laugh at yourself or your circumstance or the situation, can you get external humor? And again, I mentioned that at the moment we're going through the coronavirus, one of the things that's coming out of this is the amount of funny videos that are being forwarded to me on WhatsApp and GIFs and memes and things like that. There's so much humor around at the moment. I did my industrial year with the Metropolitan Police years ago when I was doing my degree in psychology. And I went out on attachment, this was a while ago when you could do this, went out on attachment with various groups and saw some interesting things and some real eye-opening things, and some really sad, tragic things as well, and disturbing at the time for me, because I wasn't as resilient as them in what we were seeing. But what I noticed was the sense of humour that they kept. Now, some would say it was a very black humour, the kind of canteen banter that you see. But actually, I realised they needed that. They needed that to stay sane, because what we'd just seen was deeply disturbing for me. For them, they weren't laughing at it. Don't get me wrong, they weren't laughing at the tragedy, but they were maintaining a sense of humour for their sanity. And this is often the case that you see in emergency services. There's usually a black humour that runs through it, and they know it keeps them resilient. If they let everything affect them, they won't be able to do the job. they would crumble, they would go to pieces, they would be an emotional wreck. So your sense of humour is a good thing to have. If you've got some room for manoeuvre and some room for improvement on sense of humour, then focus on it. Make it an action. Make it a goal to improve your sense of humour, to see the funny side of things. You will feel better as a result. And also, a common characteristic of resilient people is their ability to handle their emotions. They've got the capacity to handle strong feelings. Again, like I say, with the police force. And they're able to handle these strong feelings and impulses. They're in control of them, instead of the emotions and the feelings in control of themselves. So what we're saying here is, you can handle your emotions. Your emotions don't handle you. So see it the other way. So for example, in this crisis that we're handling at the moment, I realized that I was getting very anxious. And it was because I was looking at all the news reports. I was feeding myself all this negativity. The more I read about it, the more I heard about it, the more I fed all this stuff in my brain, the more anxious I was getting. And the anxiety was keeping me awake. It was affecting my mindset, my mood, everything. It was affecting everything. And I realized this. So I had to start handling those emotions. And my first approach there was to minimize how much news I watched. I wouldn't go to bed watching the 10 o'clock news and then lay awake stressing and angsting about everything. So I realized I needed to watch the news once and once only per day, and much earlier in the day. Thereafter, after I'd listened to the latest figures and the latest findings and the latest horrendousness of it all, I would then turn that off. I'd found out the facts that I needed to find out. I would then, I often go to bed after watching some comedy. In fact, it's pretty much a daily ritual, actually. I love the Dave channel. I love watching all the old Mock the Weeks and QI and all of those comedy programs, or I'll watch a film that's comedy nature. I'm just watching a great Netflix series that really makes me laugh at the moment. So bringing in the sense of humour, but also making sure I handle those emotions rather than them handling me and me out of control. So these are the common characteristics of resilience. Which of those do you already have, and which of those do you not have so much of? And therefore, you've now got the area that you need to work on. You can now make this your goal. So what have you taken from this slide? Additional resilient traits, they're very good at problem solving. Resilient people always, when they're in a difficult time, and there's lots of negativity around and challenge and obstacles and things, instead of dwelling on feeling stuck, feeling hopeless, powerless, helpless, they don't do that. They don't dwell on the negative. What they do instead, they look at the situation that they're facing and they instantly go into solution mode. What can I do about this? What is controllable here? The old adage, control the controllables. So true. So what for you currently in your situation is controllable for you? Whereas the tiny bit of control makes us feel better. Us humans are always calmer and happier and better mental health when we feel an element of control. When we feel out of control, we feel at sea. So they go into strong problem solving. What can I do about this? Where is the solution? What can I do to make it better? What can I do to find some improvement? So if you are struggling at the moment, ask yourself those questions every day. What could I do today to make this a tiny bit better? What could I do today to improve this slightly? What little part of this is in my control, and I will therefore focus on that rather than this bit over here and feel helpless. They have, as I've said, the ability to ask for help. They do not see that as a weakness, they see that as a strength. Combine that with the strong problem solving. This is what I need to do to start making this feel better. And these are the people I need to ask for help from. So those two things could be combined. They have much more of a survivor mentality rather than a victim mentality. I never ever say the phrase, why me? Why not me? Why not you? Exactly. Why any of us? that question is a waste of energy. Much better turning that question into, how can I do something about this? So ditch the victim mentality and get into survivor mentality. What can I do to come out the other side of this? They're also very self-aware. So if you need to build on your self-awareness and be more in tune with what you're thinking, more in tune of what you're worrying about, more in tune of what you would like, more in tune of what you can do, self-awareness will really propel you forward. And they're very flexible, as we said. They're not rigid like the kebab stick that break under pressure. They adapt to change. They are flexible. They have, the next point, an adaptable attitude. They also have, I mentioned with the control of emotions, they have that strong sense of, that internal sense of control. I'm in control here, I can do something about it. Rather than feeling like a victim, the world is doing this to me, why me? That's a horrible waste of energy. Get a sense of internal sense of control. And as I've said, they've got strong social connections. If you don't have current strong social connections, make that your goal. Start doing it now. Even if you are in lockdown when you watch this, you can still start building these by reaching out via the phone, via social media, via the apps. Start making contact. Go into start, developing them. Pick up the phone, send a leaflet through neighbour's door. Would you like some shopping? This is my telephone number. Make those social connections. I know we can't go out at the moment, but we can do the next best thing. I've said they've got good emotional management. I've said they've got hope and optimism. If you don't, or if there's room for improvement, focus on this. So really what I would say, and what I would leave you with today, is the activity of, what are your current inner strengths? Because we've all got some already. And what are your weaker areas in terms of resilience with regard to those parts that I've already discussed? They are therefore your action points. So think about now, how have you bounced back in the past? As a coach, I always say, what has worked for you in the past? Because if you've done that before in the past, bring that forward, you can build on it now. So it's always worth some self-reflection on how well you've done in the past. So think back to a tough time that you've come through in your past, and think about now, what were the inequalities that you had then that helped you get through? What did you draw on? Was it a sense of humour? Was it that you were able to reach out to your friends and have a good old cry and a weep and pour your heart out to them night after night for a few weeks, and then you bounce back? What were your inner strengths? Did you have real optimism? Were you glass half full kind of attitude? What got you through that tough time? And write this down, and realize on reflection what inner resilience and inner strength you already have and you've used in the past, which you can now use on this challenge that you're facing at the moment, which is why you started to watch this. Also, once you've recorded those thoughts, question yourself about that time, or a different time, a different difficult challenge. What actions did you take? What actual actions? It's not just about your thoughts and how you felt about it, but what did you do that got you through? And record those. And are they things that you could do now to get you through this? And so now you know what you've had in the past and what you've drawn on and what's worked previously. From the slides I've already covered, you may already have seen where there are some gaps. Because if you make this an activity going forward and start building this up, just as you might be going to the gym, if we're out of lockdown, or doing some activities and PE, or Joe Wicks at home, or some yoga, or whatever, if you're building on your physical, you can build on your emotional as well, your resilience. So make this an activity. Start working on it now so that you can start drawing on it. And if you're not going through a tough time now, build on it anyway, because it will be in your bank, ready, because we don't know what life is going to throw at us. We don't know what's coming our way left field. We didn't see this coming in Christmas. When we were busy tucking into our Christmas lunch, we did not know that in a matter of months, the world would be facing this enemy and we would be in this predicament. It hadn't crossed my mind at Christmas, and that's only a matter of months away. So if we do not know what's coming our way individually. So start drawing on this, start building this, building it further and further, becoming more and more resilient, ready for anything that life throws your way. So the ways to build your resilience, therefore, are look for opportunities for self-discovery. Actually welcome them, bring them on. Any opportunity where you can think, well, if I can get through this, I'll learn something about myself. Embrace it. Draw on your existing resilience, as I've said, and develop it further. All those gaps that you saw on that previous slide, if you thought, well, maybe I need a bit more of a sense of humour, maybe actually I need to build up some social connections, I can't name more than 3. You've got what you next need to develop on. Nurture a positive view of yourself. This isn't going to be easy if you are constantly harsh on yourself, constantly beating yourself up, and you're constantly criticizing yourself. You need to nurture a positive view of yourself for good mental health anyway. So that may be one thing that you need to focus on just separately, and that will help you build your resilience. Keep things in perspective. As I say, use that activity where you fast forward a few weeks or a few months or this time next year and get it into perspective. Maintain hope and optimism. It's got to be a better mindset than to focus on the doom, the gloom, the negativity in any time that you're going through. And as a team, because I run team resilience workshops, I always put this: as a team, take care of each other and draw on each other and collectively work on your team resilience. But at the moment, if you're watching this during the coronavirus, this may be your household. So the word resilience, the term resilience, and the actual, we don't use that word very much. We don't, I mean, in my family, the teenage boys don't use the word resilience at the dinner table, but I think it should be used more. It should be seen as a trait and a strength and a goal that we're aiming for. And we could work on this together as a family. You could talk about it at the table, you to talk about your resilience, use it as an everyday word. Get people in your household familiar with it, and together work on it together. It's a great opportunity, either in your team if we're back at work, or in your family, or in your sports team, or in your mates and friendships, or in your household if you're in the lockdown. So it's definitely a topic and a subject and a word that we need to use more of, because we have got nothing to lose from building resilience. You've got nothing to lose by building your inner resilience, but we've got everything to gain. So thank you for listening today. Go out there and just enjoy building up your resilience regularly. Just this is ongoing, and send me a message. If you would be interested in any one-to-one coaching, then do visit me at the website www.milestone-coaching.co.uk, or subscribe to this YouTube channel, or listen to my podcast, which you can find on the website. If you're interested in one-to-one coaching, then make contact with me via the website, because I love doing one-to-one coaching. In the coronavirus, I'm doing a lot of it on Zoom and FaceTime, and I keep the cost down for one-to-one coaching. It's very different in the corporate world, but for one-to-one private coaching, I try and keep it down below the cost of a hairdo. A female hairdo, not a male one. They're a little bit cheaper, but I do not make it expensive. And as we can't go and have our hair done anyway, it may well be something that could help you right now if you're struggling a little bit to have a one-off, one-to-one coaching session, or a couple. It's up to you. I don't tie anybody in to a certain number at all. So make contact, or just drop me a line and share your thoughts on today's video, and share how you're feeling. Share any topic requests as well. If there's anything you would like me to cover, then please do drop me a line. Take care, everybody.